Christmas, or any other holiday that you may or may not celebrate around this time of year. I do not know you, and it would take way too long to probably name anything that is relevant around this time of year, and Christmas is a thing that everybody can basically recognize on a universal level. So Christmas, that lovely time of year where joy is to be had, everybody's a little bit nicer to somebody that they may not even know, and charities get a large donation. The atmosphere of Christmas is something hard to capture in any other holiday. The bright red and green lights, the nice fires, the overly indulgent foods, the kids screaming for being forced to sit in Santa's lap, an old man that they do not know, and nobody really knows what he does at other times, so who knows what kind of creep that guy is. But hey, it's all about holiday tradition. It's a thing that we have to indulge basically every end of the year. And frankly, it is a nice idea in principle. Maybe through the advertisements that we see, the overly cheap Christmas movies, or your overly religious aunt, the idea that they try to sell is quite nice. Something that brings people together and shines a light and around the time of year that frankly, if you're not from a lovely tropical land, it's dark for most of your waking hours. You slept in late? Sorry, you don't get to see the sun today. So you can understand why some people are quite fond of Christmas, because there's more lights outside and you can see what is happening and you don't feel like you might be killed outside in the middle of the street, which is a positive, I would say. The idea of Christmas is something that really does bring people together. It does. And something that we have to do when people come together, besides tolerating in-laws that we absolutely hate and having to talk about politics or religion. I know, nobody likes that, but it's true. It happens. But the thing that we do to shut up every other annoying conversation that we don't want to have is to watch movies together. Because when you're watching a movie together, you don't have to have a conversation with people you don't like. And you can even watch movies you enjoy. Home Alone, Jesus Christ Superstar, A Christmas Carol, Grinch. There's too many to name, and Jesus Christ Superstar is the best of them all. There is no discussion, there's no debate, and now even though there is a Judas singing man that is absolutely gorgeous and an angel, you'd have managed better if you'd had it planned. These are not my favorite types of Christmas movies. These are my, this is nice and all, but these movies do a thing that I kinda wish they wouldn't, which is to hide away the weird farcical elements of Christmas. Because Christmas, sure, nowadays, everything in the mainstream media or anything else online, all those things are trying to have you do is consume and consume and consume. They want you to buy, do not think, buy more. Forget who you are, forget your family, forget your friends. As long as you're buying things that represent what Christmas are according to us, you're supposed to be happy. But yes, something that Christmas horror movies don't do is shy away from that darkness, shy away from the cynic in me. Because let's be fair, there's a lot of things about Christmas that is fairly easy to criticize. And also, it makes sense for Christmas horror movies to exist, given the fact that most of Christmas history was an absolutely weirdo nightmare, which is quite hilarious now that we look back on it. I'm sure if you were back in the day, that wouldn't be as fun, but let's just say that one of the Christmas carols that you might have heard nowadays, if carolers weren't canceled because of 2020, was about a king that got stabbed multiple times by a lance, and then he got dismembered in front of a church. And now, sure, you might not care about the origin of carolers because you don't like them in general. Who does? But at least you should be thankful, because back in the 17th century, they used to be a lot more annoying. They would show up to your house uninvited and unannounced and demand to be given food and treats and money sometimes. And if you wouldn't listen to them, if you wouldn't give them donations, they would start to throw a hissy fit and just threaten you with violence and to destroy your property, and then sing annoying songs at you until you gave them enough things so they would leave you alone. Essentially becoming the Twitch thoughts of their time, complaining about when they don't have enough donations, or basically not really doing anything that would be considered a job.
a month.
And if you're not simping enough, you're just gonna get your ass beaten. This purge-like event wasn't just secluded to one century. Another ancient festival around Christmas time involved people being released from prisons. Rich people had to pay poor people out of fear of being robbed, which I can agree with. And you know, people were just drinking without any sort of plan. They would just drink until they were blacked out or possibly throwing fire on something. And talking about people drinking like an absolutely madman or madwoman, well, the Great Depression was a great time for absolutely downward alcoholism. It was just booze everywhere to be seen, because when you don't have money, you don't want to spend your money on things like food, cookies, or milk. And that's why in the Great Depression, that's where the tradition of leaving cookies and milk to Santa Claus was first started. Because if it wasn't hard liquor being wasted, who cared if you were wasting actual food and drinks? It doesn't matter. Leave it out to the weird, creepy peeping Tom that looks at your children every night and every day, be them awake or be them asleep. It doesn't matter, he's always watching. And if there were naughty and bad children in general, some weird demon with horns would show up at your house and drag them to hell. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that nowadays, Christmas is quite glossy. Christmas is quite cleansed of its weirdness and darkness and just overall funny antics. I don't want to just be in a Christmas where I sit around in a Christmas fire and be pretending that everything is fine. No, I don't want to do that at all. I want to be hit with darkness and just overall criticism of the Christmases around me. I don't want to just be sit there ignorant of these things. And that's why I absolutely love Christmas horror movies. They don't package any of the badness away from Christmas. They actually highlight it really well. And my favorite Christmas horror movies are the movies that use that theme of complaining and criticizing Christmas within their movies while still succeeding of creating suspense and, let's be honest, a lot of comedy. Because most of the Christmas movies that I'm going to be talking about today are horror comedies because they essentially have to. There's too much potential for puns, costumes, props, and Christmas iconography to be used to be turned into this bastardized evil version of itself to create said horror and said humor. It's just too many potentials for both kills and fun to be had. If you are a creative person, Christmas times is a perfect time for you to make your movie. Sometimes those movies aren't as creative with their kills, but we'll get to that. Don't worry, it's okay. Also, not every Christmas horror movie uses that comedic element, because some of them just touch on the depressing aspects of Christmas, because sometimes it is quite sad. Again, you don't see the sun very often. It's quite bleak. Quite literally. For example, The Lodge is a movie where a woman that survived a suicide cult having to spend time around Christmas with these two kids whose mom committed suicide earlier that year. The movie just devolves into madness as this woman suffers from PTSD, paranoia, and both of those kids are also traumatized and kind of little shits, and the movie is focused solely on that conflict between the two of them. And now that I think about it, that actually fits Christmas quite well, so maybe I should reconsider. But the movies that I want to highlight are the ones that use both that darkness of Christmas and also that comedic potential into the best mixture of joy and cynicism you can possibly think of. Let's look at Gremlins, for example. Gremlins is a movie that everybody knows. Even if you haven't watched it, you probably know what it's about. It's a movie that is famous for its amazing props and prosthetics, the movie that is very memorable for quotes and lines and character design, overall funny antics and crazy Gremlins nonsense. But then again, it's also a movie that has the quote, while everybody else opens up presents, they're opening up their wrists. That is an actual quote. And this is in the same movie where Gizmo drives around an adorable little car that is pink to try to save people, and also where a gremlin blows up in a microwave just into guts and gore. This movie perfectly blends in the magic of Christmas by having the moment where Billy's dad gives him Gizmo, and the part of where he opens the present I think is something we can all look fondly on. the overall childish glee that he has about looking at this weird little mogwai that just has funny ears and a funny face, and he just is overall enjoying this time of the year because his dad finally got him something that he can remember him for. But also, Gremlins is about a movie that usually uses the worst possible scenario and most ridiculous scenario of what could go wrong of giving your kid a dog for Christmas. Instead of the dog just peeing and barking and biting everyone, it multiplies into a bunch of monsters that end up running your whole town rampant. And even in Gremlins 2, a movie that was essentially made out of spite, created solely because whoever makes Gremlins decided that they wanted a sequel to cash in of the product that was Gremlins, and Joe Dante didn't even want to make a sequel, but because he was scared that somebody else was just gonna screw with his vision and make something that was soulless with no heart at all, he just decided to make the movie so nobody else could ruin it. And I think he probably really didn't have a hard time coming up with the idea of the process of making a movie solely about a mega corporation trying to use the IP of Gremlins to make money without understanding Gremlins, or trying to. Everybody in that corporation is essentially portrayed like an evil bastard that doesn't know what they're doing and is completely incompetent, who are constantly being made fun of and get their comeuppance usually as hard as they can as soon as the Gremlins take control of the building. Joe Dante wasn't necessarily subtle about his hatred of greed, because at a point in the movie he just has Gremlins coming into the stock market only screaming that they want to, not necessarily subtle. And what is more Christmassy than an overall mega corporatization corporatizing all of the aspects of Christmas or whatever they want to make some sort of profit to steal that sweet, sweet cash out of your wallet? I don't think many things show the example of how greedy people really are around Christmas time. And corporations, well, not just Christmas time, just forever, really. It has 3 circles and looks like a mouse, but hey, it's okay. Joe Dante is not the only director that points out the greed and the dislike for greediness around Christmas, because if you were a person that went to those crazy lines where people basically stomp your grandma for some weird deal for a Fortnite toy that their kids are never gonna play with because, you know, they're too busy slaying the competition. I haven't played Fortnite, and is that what you do? I wouldn't know, but I'm sure the brats from Krampus would, because those little brats were portrayed like the worst kids ever. The cynicism of Krampus is something beautiful to behold. The intro for that movie is almost a perfect encapsulation of what Christmas has become. It shows people going absolutely crazy, almost killing each other for the fact of a cheap sale or maybe just a shovel of all things. They're willing to leave their kids behind crying because they just want to buy something that they think their kids are gonna enjoy instead of, you know, actually spending time with their kids. If you're looking for an example of a perfect Christmas horror movie, Krampus is amazing. It has everything you can possibly have. Amazing props and puppets, evil elves, mean to children, an aunt that does not care about anything and couldn't care less about what is happening currently and just wants to drink, and also just, you know, an awkward family dinner, and an overall disdain, a very visible disdain to children. It's very obvious that whoever made Krampus had very specific kids in mind, when the fact that the demon that comes from hell to punish you for just, you know, not following in the spirit of Christmas was summoned accidentally by the brat of a child that you actually have. It's just amazing the fact that they're willing to be so mean to children, not only in how they represent them, but also the fact that not even the kids are safe on Krampus. I definitely appreciate a movie that is not scared of it just, you know, maybe getting rid of a kid or two in your movie, because it really sets the stakes pretty high, and I just love to see. Now, I could probably be talking about every other Christmas horror movie that I love and just want to, you know, for a little bit, but I don't want to be here all day. So let's just go through some of the other ones that I like and maybe some other ones, some other ones that are not as good, let's say. So we have Better Watch Out, a very suspenseful thriller that has a twist that improves the said mystery and in a way that makes sense throughout the movie. It never breaks character, it doesn't break the logic of the movie, and when that twist happens, the movie turns on its head and you're watching something completely different than you thought. Especially the fact that the kid actors are actually good, and this kid in particular is eating the fucking scenery from start to finish, and it's amazing to watch. Another movie with really good new cast members, Anna and the Apocalypse. A goddamn zombie musical Christmas movie trying to make fun of Christmas musical get-togethers at the end of the year by making exactly that, by having a Christmas musical around the end of the year about high school students. It's an amazing movie full of fun kills, creative ideas with zombies, and just overall a very good new cast of characters that I really want to see more of, especially Steph. Steph is to be treasured. She was beautiful. Maybe not as good as the head of the school that had an absolutely disdain for everybody and everything to such a spectacular level that you can't help to love him. The man essentially devolves into a leprechaun dancing and singing into how he loves seeing kids being eaten by zombies.
How I do adore having the floor to tell you what's on my mind. Always speaking, texting, tweeting every thought that's in your vacuous heads.
All of these movies I mentioned, maybe not The Lodge, are essentially dark comedies, and if you enjoy that sort of thing, these are for you. I doubt that anybody could argue that these movies aren't dark comedies, but again, we're in the internet, don't worry, somebody would. Now, of course, not all of these movies are high quality, high fun, and just overall smart creative things that are being done. Oh no, certain Christmas horror movies do put a bad name on said genre. Just like any other genre, there are those stinkers because, you know, Santa Claus, Santa Sleigh, Jack Frost. There's too many to name, I don't know. Oh yeah. Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2, Ginger Dead Man, and ATM are all essentially subpar slashers that kinda only use Christmas as a gimmick or just to have somebody dress like Santa Claus or be an evil Ginger Dead Man. These movies are not essentially very good. I wouldn't debate it, but I would still say that a lot of them are quite fun to watch if you enjoy bad movies. Maybe not ATM because it's just a guy in a hoodie, so you can just watch that at any other time, but the other movies, even though I understand that they're badly acted, badly scripted, a lot of them don't make any sense, even especially Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, because there's some movies that are just, you know, reusing old footage of the original movie to make the second movie and somehow still pretend it's a new story. But hey, it's fine. I don't even care. Even though I understand those movies are just using Christmas as a gimmick, it's still a pretty fun gimmick to be used. Look, I know these are not good. You know these are not good. So why not just watch them online with friends with a little bit of booze, and you're probably gonna have a good time watching those. What my point is, or what I'm trying to make my point to be, is that even with the bad and not fun Christmas movies, well, not intentionally fun, let's say, there's still a lot of magic to be had with Christmas horror movies. I know I haven't covered every possible Christmas horror movie out there, probably too many to name. I can't see everything. You can let me know which movies you like or think are kinda trashy in the comments below. I want to share the joy that I have of the mixtures of the glossiness of Christmas and the cynicism of horror movies. The way that they blend together makes a perfect cocktail for potential, and a lot of movies actually succeed in that. The fact that a lot of the movies that I've mentioned are actually quite varied in how they portray Christmas and what they use it for shows that this genre is not just a gimmick. It shows that you can have a lot of fun ideas just using Christmas as a backdrop or as an original brainstorm. There are many movies you should be watching, so why not give it a try for the movies I talked about today? Maybe subscribe, I don't know, it's up to you. Cool, great, bye.